G'day guys, time for my very exciting 2024 Golden Slipper preview. Great race this year, so really looking forward to getting into it. The way I'm going to handle it, I'll just talk about the race straight up, talk about how I think the race will be run, and then go through the key chances. So go through Storm Boy, Switzerland, Lady of Camelot, Hyasugi. They sort of come through the same race, straight charge, and talk about any other runners I think are important. I'll give just a breakdown on how I see them being set up for the race, and then at the end of it, I'll probably talk about my opinion and how I think to best play the race and who I think's probably got the best chance of winning for this year's race. So getting straight into it, just checking everything's recording. The map is definitely not that race. What's just happened there? We've had a mare. The map is sort of all important in these sorts of races usually. And this race is certainly significantly different with Gay Waterhouse horses drawing in gates 1, 2, 3, 5, 9, and where's the other one? 11, crossed. So she really does have a bit of control over this race and how it's going to be run. I actually believe that the two most likely leaders, even though the map sort of suggests otherwise, is just an automated map from Ratings to Win, which is the program I use. I think Shangri-La Express and Straight Charge are the probably two most likely horses to lead them up here. I think Tim's drawn ideally in 9 on Straight Charge to have the best options to have a look how those inside horses have come out, because there's not much speed drawn outside him, and then whether he pushes on or he's happily sort of settling up outside lead or something like that. So he'll most likely be the leader, I would say, and if not outside the leader, I think Shangri-La Express will be the horse that'll most likely push on and hold the rail if another Waterhouse runner does. And then I think Storm Boy will be right behind them, Lady of Camelot right behind them. So, yeah, I think either Straight Charge leads Storm Boy behind it, or Straight Charge leads Shangri-La Express behind it, or Shangri-La Express leads Straight Charge outside it, and Lady of Camelot in that sort of 1-1 spot. I think that's the most likely way it'll work out for the stables. Best chances, probably Fully Lit's probably is the weakest link in the camp, and if it's not up in the charging line and running interference, I think that's probably best for the camp. So that's the way I'd play it personally from their side of things, and we'll see how things unfold. But getting straight into the horses themselves, Storm Boy certainly has been dominant favourite for quite a while in this race. Firstly, looking at his setup, he has been in work since sort of August last year, and reportedly he's only had like 2 days off out of the stables, and that was after he won the Magic Millions on the Gold Coast. So he's not really had a break. Very difficult for a horse to be in work for that long and keep performing or improving. And the difference with this horse probably, arguably, is that he's physically got the capability to do it. He's got this presence about him of a 4-year-old gelding and the size of him of a 4-year-old gelding. So it may stand him in better stead to deal with all of this pressure and racing all in his first preparation more than a normal horse could. He sort of gradually improved ratings-wise. I'm not a big ratings person, but he still did it. First start, second start, third start. His first start, everything went to plan. Second start, third start, he certainly had to overcome a few things and still continue to improve those numbers, which is a great sign. Trialled and had 49 days between runs up until his last start, where he led, dominated, was basically handed the race and put in a run that was somewhere in line with his first start, which again is a good thing, because if you basically reset him that 7 weeks between runs, you could see him improving off that. So probably the two most significant runs. We'll have a quick look at the Golden Slipper run. Sorry, Magic Millions run. So significant things here. Number one, here he is here in the yellow and blue. He's not the fastest horse in the world to begin. And, if you sort of lined him up gate 2, he's probably going to hold that spot outside of 1, but he probably won't dig up and lead sort of faster horses. So that's number one. You can see that once he hits the ground running, he does have good speed. And I think that they won't particularly want him to be sort of 2-3 back the fence. He'll either, cross and lead, take a sit behind the leader at worst if it's the right horse, or hold that spot one off the fence. And I can see him doing that. I don't see the inside gate being a huge negative. I don't think Ryan Moore is known as the most, positive jockey in the world. He sort of races in jurisdictions where they get pacemakers, and they sort of settle their horse a lot more. So, fast run 2-year-old races, I don't think he rides in a hell of a lot, but he's obviously one of the better riders in the last 20 years of racing. So he can do anything if he has to. Important thing to note here is what this horse can do in a sort of semi to high pressure race. So he certainly had to work as hard as any horse in this race. The second horse here has had the colt sit on him and looked to be arguably travelling better than him at one point. And you can see once this horse's sort of afterburners kick in, he's certainly got plenty there in the tank. You can see physically he's just a big, strong bully. And that's the way he races. Like it's very hard to combine size and ability with 2-year-olds. Usually, if they're growing out of proportion, it slows them down somewhat. Whereas this guy certainly looks like he's pretty scary. So this next up, a couple of things to point out. I thought, even though Prost, who we'll have a quick look at here because I won't talk about him in detail, looks like he's sort of closing on him late. He still runs the fastest section of the race here, and that's after getting full control. So I just treating this as like a glorified barrier trial, to be honest, another trial. And yeah, so this is the Skyline Stakes. And again, he doesn't jump super clean, different angle, but he does muster and hold the front. He certainly is controlling the speed completely here. Prost is the one sort of gets shuffled back here in the those Kia Ora hybrid colours. Yeah, like he's not going to get this sort of a run in a Golden Slipper. You wouldn't imagine. If he does that, it'll be times and margins. But James has really looked after him, I think. He certainly given him that little clean out, as I said, sort of treating it as a glorified barrier trial. I do think Prost is a bit of a knockout chance in this race. I do think he'll probably be ridden back and face a big task. But you can see sort of still builds through his gears. He's not weakening. No signs that he's come to the end of his preparation. And like he basically ticks all boxes. This horse is where I'm heading with this. From a betting standpoint, probably cover that a little bit more later when we have a look at the betting overall. He's certainly extremely well found, but there's no weaknesses from what I can see, apart from maybe him looking for 1,400 metres, which is not a huge drama in a high pressure golden slipper usually. So a few Freudian slips from me to date. But that's Storm Boy. We'll sort of head down betting order wise, and we'll cover Shangri-La Express. He's a very similar horse he's on his first prep. He probably came into work 2 or 3 months later. He's only had his first trial on the 2nd of January, back again on the 11th of January, first start 27th of January, and then he's gone 1,000, 11, 1,200. I don't mind that setup into a slipper, but he doesn't have that grounding of a previous preparation. So he too is sort of getting deeper into his first prep. Storm Boy had the 7-week freshen up from 3rd start to 4th start. This horse has just had to sort of chug on through. This horse has held its form, as in ratings-wise. It's sort of factoring that in. It is definitely a part of racing. Physically, he's not the specimen yet that Storm Boy is, and I think that could potentially play against him. And he is more likely to be redlining, in my opinion, than Storm Boy will be come Saturday, come tomorrow. So he's not devoid of early speed, so I think he'll hold a spot just in behind the Waterhouse camp during the race. You can see sort of he's allowed to drift back a bit here, and then once that position doesn't look like it's going to be found, James uses him up, sits outside leader, and they are going along in this race, fairly solidly. It's not as high quality race, so this is a Piero plate, but they've still certainly not gone slow, and he's got the ability to then sit outside the leader. This is over 1,100 metres at Randwick, and eventually sort of go through his gears and get through past the leader, Shangri-La Express. I don't think Shangri-La Express can win this race. I definitely think it's a much deeper race, this slipper, but a good sign to see a horse that can sit outside the leader and tough it out after setting a fast tempo. So I've got no problem with that horse That's a big tick, sitting outside leader. So this is the Todman Stakes, where again they sort of run fast time. So instead of going back over things, we'll have a good look at this race. Straight Charge on the inside. Espionage, who's first emerges, he gets dragged back in behind. Shangri-La Express is in the race again. I did have a list of all these horses that are in all these races, but it's not that important. More focusing on Straight Charge and Switzerland. I will go back to the start for 1 second. So you notice this horse knuckles quite badly and is then forced to sort of dig up and take up a position. So half misses the kick, which is not normal for that horse. Sort of just slipped. Something freakish, I would say, has happened. They do go along quite quickly, so he's used up early to hold that spot, whereas this is Switzerland back here, just being allowed to relax back off the speed. Nash sort of had a brain explosion. Espionage goes up and runs up the back of them. So a few weird things happen here. 100 to 1 shot gets stuck out wide because Nash has taken up that spot. And he goes forward and applies even more pressure to Straight Charge. So he's never really got a break at any stage. If anything, he's been attacked the whole way. So nothing more could possibly really go wrong for Straight Charge. And I was sort of talking about him more than Switzerland here, but we're covering this race in general. And they're the two main horses that come out of this race, in my opinion. Switzerland's had the dream run back there in the field. The Sting does come out of the race late, so they have gone quick and they do back it off. Time overall's still pretty solid. And it's said the sort of the rating that he runs is in line with his first two starts. So he's a very consistent horse, Switzerland. It's not as if he's bouncing through the roof from run to run, but he continues to hit the line and does nothing wrong. Like, he's a real professional, quite adaptable as we've seen, and Straight Charge just sort of is found wanting that little bit late, which is understandable considering all the work that he's had to do throughout the race. I continue to struggle to speak English. So yeah, Switzerland for mine, my sort of positives, his adaptability, his draw, I think is ideal to sort of camp on the back of the Waterhouse runners. I don't think, Chris Waller could have done a better job to get this horse here, considering it is all in the first preparation in any better order and with a better setup. So everything's gone ideally for him. It's just a matter of whether they can continue to go to that well or not. And he has had, really nice run first prep, sort of riding the rail, getting out, a good effort. Second start, I think he beat a sub-standard field, but did it aggressively in a competent manner, which is, you can't ask much more than that. And then last time, a few things did go his way. So we're saying he won by a length, but I don't think he could have done any more. And, whether he's got more to give or whether horses can improve or this is a stronger field, they're all the things you've got to weigh up if you're thinking about Switzerland. Personally, I think he's vulnerable here, but, you've got to take a line for and against, and I can't knock anyone really that likes him. It's just that physical drawback of being all in first prep and a little bit immature that may hold him up here. But he's a very interesting runner for sure, Switzerland. Lady of Camelot, and we'll cover Hyasugi at the same time, who's the winner out of this Blue Diamond. So this horse, very interesting, had the one run before Christmas, which I love, had a run in September, 30th of September, greatest day of the year. 2 trials, came back, dominant winner, ran a really fast rating, much better than Storm Boy for mine. Again, I'm not a ratings person, but I'm just sort of mentioning it. Ran a fast tempo and sort of led and maintained it throughout. Then went to the Blue Diamond. First time she'd gone this way, and a little bit like Straight Charge, I think this is her here, sort of fall from the inside. Couldn't have had a lot more go against her, considering her sort of bulletproof nature of racing. So, number one, Spywise, which sort of Shanghai's out of the gates and is an unlikely leader. She probably looked the leader. They do go really quick, and they do back it off late, but they still do run fast overall time, which is obviously set up by the horses up on speed. So Hyasugi's sort of back here, hard to see at the moment, but sort of tucks in, but then he's forced to maintain a long and wide run. So I thought her effort's still pretty good. Coleman's in this race. Traffic Warden's back in the pack in this race. So is it Ruda Royal? He's back in the pack here as well. I think Dublin Downs back in the wide as well. So there's quite a few runners in this race that have then either confirmed the form. Dublin Downs run well. Coleman's run well. Traffic Warden's won the size. Ruda Royal's come out and ran second in the size. So it's hard to knock this form. It's just, measuring it up to your Storm Boy straight charge Switzerland form. That's the key to this whole race, basically, for mine. So she's up outside the leader, working as hard, other than stay focused, as anything in the race. And then she's kind of left in front a long way out with Spywire already throwing up the red flag, or the white flag. And she never either changes to her better leg. So I like to see horses change to their sort of fresh leg and let down and sprint, which is what she did late in her previous start. She never does that. So a few things that I think were against her, the tempo, being left in front, so nothing to chase, no cover, fast tempo, up in a working position, outside leader, left in front, doesn't change leg. Hyasugi, we'll just go back to sort of look at it so we can compare the two. The things I like about her is she's had to pull off the back of Coleman right here. So here she is already having to make a run sustained wide, no cover from, the point of the turn. So for her to be able to sustain that run, you got Anise in here as well too. Traffic Warden back here, doubling down, Ruta Royale. I think they're clearly the two best runs in the race. And I would say that arguably Lady of Camelot's clearly the best run in the race. Hyasugi draws a wide gate here, just covering her really quickly, which makes it hard for her to, again, sort of make up that leeway, I think. She's going to be in a very difficult position, have to run past, possibly an even better field of horses, whether you say these are the right ones or the Sydney horses. Either way, there's more depth to the race overall than there is to this one. So for mine, I'm taking Lady of Camelot's run out of this as a huge positive. Said ratings-wise, it's measured up at the very worst. They get a little bit of a weight relief here. Drawn absolutely ideally. Blake Shin aboard. We didn't talk about the riders on the other two horses, but Ryan Moore and James McDonald kind of speak for themselves. So the trial she's had since has been well talked about. A lot of coverage because it's very flashy. I'm very careful with trials, especially with horses that are hard fit. Horses that are hard fit and performed well during their preparations, or poorly to be honest, should go back and trial well because there's not the pressure in a trial that there is in a race. So you've got a huge fitness advantage, you've got a huge advantage in general because you're coming out of a race that's run at race tempo, a million things, coming back in grade. It's like, it's hard to sort of describe, but it's like running a flat out 400 metres, then training, a lap of the oval. That's nearly the lack of pressure there is in comparison. So two things I like to see here is Shin's obviously tried to take a sit with her. She settles in third. And she's been okay with it. And this is trial tempo. So she's going to get a real tempo on Saturday, and I would say she'll relax even better just sitting behind a Golden Slipper tempo, sort of fourth, fifth. Shin's great at that. Shin's great at getting at the gates and getting them into a position naturally without sort of over-exerting themselves. All positives for this mare. And just watching her up straight here, as again, that she hasn't run electrifying time. She hasn't done anything that's, not ever been seen before. But you can see he half moves his hands here. And the extension she shows through the line, people argue, it's a trial. I'd still rather see that than not. I'd still rather see gaps opening up like this in a trial late with no pressure and looking strong and fresh through the line than I would rather not see it. So for me, you couldn't have asked anything more. She's shown that she's got that sharpness still in her legs. I think Shin's a great booking. The draw, everything about this horse is ideal for her to improve. She has firmed up in betting in the last sort of 24 to 48 hours, which is a bit of a nightmare because I was sort of happy to continue to keep betting into her personally, but I think she's sort of getting close to where she should have been. That's Lady of Camelot, straight charge. This is probably the last horse I'll look at in detail. He comes out of the Breeders' Plate. So he ran on the 30th of September last year, first start in a race. Came back 2 trials, actually won first up where he was very dominant there, leading throughout in good time. Then had a 63-day break where he had a little setback. Trialled up before that. So he's in a similar boat to straight charge, except he's got that break between runs and he's had the same amount of starts, right? So they both had 4. It's just the little bit of a different layout. And then he went into the Todman last start. all these races, just making sure that I'm not making too many mistakes here. Yeah, so he went Silver Slipper, where he was dominant. And he certainly was given his chance there. The sort of the draw, everything worked out well. A little bit of sting out of the track, all ideal for this horse. And he was quite dominant there. Then last start, as I said, a few things went wrong. Adjusted times-wise, he ran the fastest to the 800, 400, and 200 the day. So he certainly worked hard there. And yeah, as I said, I think the draw is going to work out nicely for him here. And he's a horse that can, pick his target, whether it's in front or outside leader, and he's going to run well. I think he's really well set up. 2 preps, little mid-race trial, and 2 runs this time in. He's seasoned enough to run really well here. So I think that's sort of the covering of the main chances. For me, I do think that Straight Charge and Lady of Camelot have got the best setups to beat Storm Boy. If you're trying to find a weakness in a horse that's $2.20, which is what basically I try to do every day, there's not too many in Storm Boy, and the only one really is that he's all doing this all on his first preparation with no real break. The inside draw, all those things, I don't think are huge factors. I'd say, percentage-wise, you'd say that he's more likely to find a strong challenging position than he's not. So I'm not a big, worry on anything to do with that inside draw, really, especially with the weather looking like it's going to hold up pretty well, and the worst that we'll see is probably a 5. So, but I do think that that the 2 stablemates are not far off him ability-wise. I do think that Lady Camelot is a completely deserved second favourite and should have been much closer in betting all along. There's nothing I don't like about her. And Straight Charge is kind of double the price. So we're talking Straight Charge, $12, $13. Lady of Camelot's around the $7 mark now. I think that's sort of fair enough. And, I think Storm Boy's price is difficult to judge because he's such a big, strong lad that you wouldn't want to take him on too much. But I think he's sort of well found and short enough at the same time. Switzerland's the horse that I will be taking on personally, and that's with great fear that he's drawn ideally. Chris Waller's a great grand final trainer. His horses can certainly, run through the brick wall on grand final day. They're usually well prepared to do so. He's going to be in the right spot to be able to challenge. The track should be absolutely ideal for him. He's got a lot in his favour, Switzerland. It's just whether he's got that improvement that I believe he needs to make physically to take this next step. And, everyone's got to make a decision in a race. And my decision is to sort of bet around him. Storm Boy, will go around and lose it for me as well. And that's just simply on price. But looking for roughies, if it gets nasty in the race and you're taking quaddies, I think the value lies in horses like, I did write them down, and now what have I done with them? Hayasugi certainly coming out of that Blue Diamond. If they're running on down the middle and there's some congestion on the inside, I can certainly see her running very well. Traffic Warden draws ideally to have a sort of flukish chance of winning the race. 1,400 back to 12, he should be strong. Going to be in a very similar position to Switzerland. I love Prost as a horse, just the draw, and they're probably going to be forced to go back, which is a nightmare for him, but he's 50-1. And Anisa, who poked up behind them in that Blue Diamond, drawn horrifically here, but she's 50-1 as well. So Hayasugi around the $20 mark, Traffic Warden 34, and these are in Prost. If you're going wide in a quaddie and looking for the blow-up knockout chances, they're the 4 that I'm throwing in. But exceptional Golden Slipper this year. It's just great to see a field with such depth. They all look like the progressive horses pretty much. Like there's not many horses obviously it's a Golden Slipper. You're going to take them all home if you had the option, but there's not too many you wouldn't bank on coming back as 3-year-olds and potentially improving, which is, as people who love racing, what we want to see. So not only is this the pinnacle of 2-year-old racing for the season, I do honestly believe that the majority of these horses are going to come back better as 3-year-olds. So, really exciting from my point of view. Can't wait to watch the race. Lady of Camelot and Straight Charge will be my 2 main results 100%. And, Team Gay. Good luck to anyone playing, and the day itself is great. For those of you who like this sort of content, I do a live stream now on Kick. So it's an app or a website, kick.com, kick.com/racing watch, trying to put as much content on there as I can live, do some reviews, race day coverage, talk about the races, previews, a little bit like this, show you what I do with the races betting wise, and have a bit of fun with some giveaways and things as well. racingwatch.com.au is my website if you're interested in this sort of information on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, it's not about that. It's about this race. And yeah, hopefully everyone out there has a bit of luck. Cheers, guys.